Like her cats, Alexandra Lange has had 9 lives. For 14 years, this mother of 4 was beaten, threatened, and humiliated by her husband until the day she thought he would kill her. But she killed him first. Alexandra was acquitted 3 years ago, but she still vividly remembers when she tried to get help.
When
I called the police to press charges, they saw me standing there with just a bit of blood. Well, you could still see traces around the neck, a bit of blood around my mouth. And there was my eye, which was still swollen, with a bump the size of a ping-pong ball under the arch of my eyebrow. And the cop, who stayed in his car, asked, "Are you the woman who wants to file a complaint?" "Well, yes, it's me. I've been beaten by my husband and I can't take it anymore." "But you're not bleeding enough." "Excuse me?" "Well, too bad. I'll come back to you when I'm dead."
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Alexandra's story was turned into a book and then a film called L'Emprise, or The Hold. It tells the story of her being beaten by her husband until in 2009 she kills him. In court she argued it was self-defense. She stabbed him while he was strangling her. The jury agreed. But before she was freed, Alexandra spent over 18 months in prison and was only reunited with her children last year.
When I committed this act, I arrived in prison thinking I was the only woman to have killed her husband because he beat me. And then I saw a report on television. I was still incarcerated, and I saw this report about women in a prison in the north of France. And when I heard that this woman, and that woman, and this one killed her husband under the yoke of domestic violence, and I said, wow, I'm not the only one.
Not the only woman to kill her husband in self-defense. This is what the lawyers for Jacqueline Sauvage argued, that fatally shooting her husband in 2012, who had abused her and her children for over 45 years, was legitimate defense even if it was delayed. The jury disagreed and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. It was only after a national petition was launched that last January Sauvage was pardoned by President Hollande. Eva Darlin is a French actress who is one of the leaders of this petition. A victim of incest and domestic violence, she supports a proposed law called Delayed Legitimate Defense, or better known as the Battered Woman Syndrome. Today, only Canada has such legislation.
C'est une loi qui va protéger les femmes.
It's a law which will protect women. Of course, legitimate defense should also be delayed, because you can't only defend yourself when you're being killed. Like in the case of Jacqueline Sauvage. She'd just been beaten up. The time she goes to get her gun, that's no longer legitimate defense. That's just not acceptable. The sentence Jacqueline Sauvage received was unjust and scandalous. Very unjust and painful.
Eva produced a one-woman show called Raw and Naked, where she draws on her own experience of violence and abuse. Although there are some humorous moments, she says domestic violence is no laughing matter. She was abused by her husband for 2 years before leaving him.
The laws aren't enforced, or not really enforced, or just a bit. The restraining order, you know, the law which says you can't approach within 500 meters and all that, it's rarely enforced. The moral harassment, it's almost never enforced. Me, I had a file that was like this on moral harassment, and nothing happened.
The case of Jacqueline Sauvage has brought the emotional issue of domestic violence back in the public spotlight. It's estimated that in France alone, 1 woman dies every 3 days from domestic violence. Luc Framiot has helped victims of domestic violence for over 10 years. He's also written a book about the tough role of magistrates in court, in which he devotes a section to domestic violence.
Combien de fois?
1 million de fois!
Et vous l'avez tué?
But Luc Frémiot was also the public prosecutor for Alexandra Lange's trial. His tough questioning, but also his impassioned plea for her acquittal, were featured in the film. Yet for Frémiot, Jacqueline Sauvage is a different story. While he says her verdict was unjust, he worries that rewriting the laws on self-defense could send a wrong message that the law can't protect these victims.
What shocks me is that we're going to give these women a blank check, almost a license to kill when they believe there's no alternative. Because we start from the belief that they are in a permanent mortal danger, which isn't true. There are times when things are better, these times that we call the honeymoons, where the protagonist of this violence tries to go back towards his wife, promising that he will stop. There are many periods between these scenes of violence, and it's during these times where they should take advantage of the situation to go and file a complaint, to contact a lawyer or an association. One can understand that a woman has a legitimate reason to hate this person who's been beating her for years. She could plan a murder in telling herself, I've had enough, I'm going to kill him. And it's possible to plan a murder under these conditions by saying that it was a delayed, legitimate defense. There, I'm not guilty. This just isn't possible. It puts into question all the principles of law and the rules of society.
Morgane Seliman was beaten by her husband for over 4 years before she filed a complaint and succeeded in having him sentenced to prison. She's written a book called He Stole My Life, hoping to help others who want to escape this circle of violence.
It really started when I was pregnant, and often about nothing. It would start in the morning. I didn't put away the TV remote, or I didn't put the cushions back in their right place. And all this was just a pretext to hit me and to start his famous countdown. Knowing that I would put our son down for his nap at 2 o'clock, he would tell me, in 4 hours I'm going to beat you, in 2 hours, in 1 hour, in 10 minutes, until that fatal hour arrived.
Why did you stay so long?
Somewhere there was love. I always had that hope. I'm pregnant, I'll start a family, and he'll change. He'll become good. And I'm scared. The fear takes up more and more place, because I tell myself, this man's crazy, he might kill me. He might take it out on my family. And on top of that, there comes a moment when he hits me so much that it becomes a ritual. The only thing I can think about is what mood he will be in, hoping that tomorrow I'll be alive to feed my son. Then you don't have any more time to think about leaving or anything else.
Today, Morgane lives in Normandy with her son after hiding for over a year. She said she's grateful to the associations who helped her. But she still worries. Her ex-husband is no longer in jail. He has the legal right to see their son, and he threatened her when she wrote her book.
I'm not as scared as I was before. It's not the same type of fear. Right now I'm scared that one day he'll lose it, and that day he'll kill me.